G'day, Alex. How are you?
Great. How's it going?
I'm good, mate. Thanks for catching up with me today. What a time to be alive. I've really been enjoying catching up with my professional network over this self-isolation period, and you've quite generously agreed to chat with me for a bit before you have a meeting at 1.
Having the apocalypse?
Yeah, that's it. And it looks like, I don't know, is that a regular feature for you, the face beard, or is that just like a COVID-19?
No, this is my survival beard. There's been a real downturn in the amount of coffees and lunches, so I've had to rough it.
You don't have to be as presentable, I guess. Is that another reason?
Well, I also got some comments that my profile picture on the website looked a bit too young, so I've just aged myself 10 years.
Not going to lie, when I was just writing the notes up before we were talking and looking at your LinkedIn profile, I did think a little bit about that. I was like, whoa, you look like you're a bit like 12 there or something. Not in a bad way, but just, maybe you got good genes or a baby face or something. I don't know.
It is 5 years old, so 5 years in law is 15 years elsewhere when you factor in the stress.
That's it. Yeah. So just covering your background a little bit. So you are a lawyer and specialising in construction litigation. I think I got that right.
Yep.
And so just reading through your LinkedIn profile, very impressive, I guess, in terms of some of the things that you do. Being a civil engineer myself, I can have an appreciation for that. And we were just chatting a little bit about it before we started recording that. Sometimes it is difficult when you're in the moment, particularly with the guys on site when they're trying to follow like a critical path analysis and stuff like that, or the drawings. And so I think it's something that's really required in terms of what you're doing, and it's a bit of a science, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So looking forward to diving in a little bit more, like some of the projects maybe that you've done, or something that you really have found over the past couple of years that you've really enjoyed about that.
Science is an interesting term with delay. I call it black magic.
You have to get your CSI hat on and like try and figure things out.
all the QSs right now shaking their fists, being like, "Oh, Dave, we can predict it down to the day," except for that guy who predicted it out to the week. So, no, it's a pretty technical, interesting area, very cross-disciplinary. Other than just building stuff, you've also got the engineering, certification, delay analysis, quantifying costs, dealing with the regulatory stuff, and then the worst of all, dealing with the lawyers. So,
yeah. Well, I guess I totally agree. And one of the things I really appreciate about, I guess, you personally, obviously looking at your LinkedIn profile, and we were just chatting a little bit about it before, is you have a bit of practicality behind you. Like, it sounded like you sort of grew up in construction and you're currently doing renovations right now, and you've done a little bit of study within the construction industry. Obviously, you're a lawyer. So I appreciate that practicality behind it. And I think some of the things you were just talking about before, that it helps, right, to have a bit of a practical understanding going into these matters and some of these like cases that you look at.
Well, one thing I've noticed with construction people is they love the acronyms and they love the jargon. Everything is a different language. You can't say we're going to dig a hole. We've got to bulk out this fill or whatever. And you can't say $100 a cube. It's got to be per bulked amount or whatever. So if you want to keep up with everyone, it's really important to get into the details. And it's also about building relatability with the clients. I don't think many people are really going to feel comfortable with someone who doesn't understand their industry. That's always been a part of what I do. I think it's really important to understand your client's industry inside out, because there's a lot of money at stake. So it's really important to pick up the details, because very minor details can make a really big difference sometimes, and they get missed if you're not across it.
Yeah, 100%. No, I totally agree. Would you also say that with regards to the detail, it's easy sort of to get caught up sometimes in the moment for the guys on site. So, but it is pretty important, right? Like you're saying, the minor detail can literally blow a project out from a cost and schedule perspective.
Yeah, I would say half of my job is just translating building jargon into normal English. And you talk about one fairly common issue, which is variations.
Yeah.
Look, everyone knows what a variation is. It's plain English, but basically you want more money because you did more work. Just explain what the original work was, what the new work was, and how much it costs. That's it. Don't send 3,000 pages of stuff through and 240 photos and 100 emails. Doesn't make any sense. Just
100%.
explain simply. But, you know, the old saying, I sent you a long letter because I didn't have time to do a short one, really rings true. And that's when you do get, you know, professionals involved to help communicate complex facts simply. So that's what I
100%, mate. And just back on, I had a funny thought when you were talking about like industry jargon, and I'm sure every industry has it, but I've spent a bit of time in the mining industry and it's exactly the same thing. And if you don't actually speak the lingo, if you like, it is, like you said, a foreign language. And then the other thing I was thinking about is putting on top the Aussie slang on top of that, like, or the Aussie of talking. And so it, like you're saying, it is sort of another language. And what I've found personally is, if you're not getting down onto that detail, like I was saying before, that level, it's literally another world, right? So I like what you're saying about building those relationships up front and trying to get into the detail. That's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess the other thing is, like, a lot of what I do is disputes. And I think a big part of disputes is people not understanding each other, because we've got a lot of money and time at stake. Most people are within the context of a big company and they don't want to be blamed for anything. So it's not blame because they don't understand what the other person's saying. So instead of saying, how are we going to work this out? It's like, well, it's not my fault and we've got this contractual clause and you go fix it. And say, well, hold on a second, you did this, and then it's the blame game. And really, if you just sort through all the rubbish, you can find a solution a lot better and cheaper. But you know, most people will let these things fester for 12, 18 months. And then when everything really hits the fan, that's when they get their lawyers involved. And it's just a long process of untangling it. Like the world's most complicated game of free cell, like 1 million cells. You just got to keep sorting them back out each way.
Oh, that was my favorite game growing up, particularly the small one. Like, you know, you could have the 3 levels, and I think the small one was like, I did the quickest I did it was like 9 seconds.
That's Minesweeper.
Oh, Minesweeper. Sorry, you're right.
I suspect both have had a big resurgence in the last 3 weeks.
Definitely, yeah. No, that's cool, mate. Like, I love hearing insights into particularly the construction industry in and around that, given that's kind of my background. But just changing gears a little bit onto, you know, the state of affairs around, economic shutdown.
The apocalypse.
The apocalypse, that's it. It looks like you're working from your office, so you haven't transitioned from a working from home perspective. So just talk to us a little bit about, first of all, your own sort of day-to-day routine. Has that changed? But then the industry, I guess, not only from, you know, the law, you're a lawyer, but also the construction industry.
Yeah, a lot of it, a lot of what we have done hasn't changed too much. I mean, half the office is working from home. The other half is dealing with matters that it's just really difficult to work from home. Like when you got 3,000 pages, it's very difficult to work remotely. A lot of people have 3 screens set up at work, whereas at home they've only got the 1 laptop. That makes it very difficult to deal with things. Filing documents and filling out forms, like you need the printers to do it, and not everyone has a good internet connection as well for other types of issues. So what I do, I've just been coming in because it's just so much more efficient. You lose too much time otherwise. In terms of the industry, I think construction has escaped fairly unscathed. I mean, there are definite impacts. I'm doing an article shortly. It's basically just going to be new red tape, same industry. And I think that's what it is. Like, it's still business as usual. Now there's just a couple of additional requirements. One of the big ones is like site sections to try and maintain the health and safety workers instead of having everyone packed in together like you normally would on site. Now we've got different sections for each type of sub-trade or whatever. And that's to try and keep the social distancing alive and well.
Yeah. Now that's I mean, I've been speaking to a couple of people that I know who are in the industry, construction industry as well, and it sounds like it's pretty full tilt within sort of the parameters, like you're saying, issued by the government. And we were chatting earlier about, I guess, you know, what we're doing here in Australia and how the construction industry hasn't really been impacted comparatively to, like, you know, New Zealand or the US, where literally the whole countries shut down, right? So I think we're pretty blessed in that regard. But you know, the economy, you could argue, heavily relies on the construction industry and ancillary services to that. So interesting.
Take out construction, you also take out suppliers, and you also take out development. You also take out a bunch of consultants who service construction exclusively. And, you know, I guess if you want to take I'm not a scientist or anything, but a lot of the construction work is actually fairly separated. Like, a lot of it is just moving stuff and logistics and planning. The actual building is really like 2 or 3 guys at a time, like doing whatever they are on site. Like, yeah, there's lots of people on a big site, but really at the coal face, there's only ever a couple of people like putting up a wall or digging a hole or roughing in some wiring. Maybe I'm showing my giant ignorance here. I'm about to come unstuck with my knowledge of construction, but yeah,
it's usually pretty accurate to me, mate. No, you're definitely right in shedding some light on that.
Yeah, so look, I think all these things and everything in life, you need a bit of balance. Like, yeah, you got to protect people on the one hand, but shutting down the economy may have like an even bigger effect elsewhere entirely.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that's happening in the US right now. People are starting to really feel it, trying to survive with no work available.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. No, I think we're pretty blessed. And I personally think, like, it's not a political stance or anything, but I think the government's doing really good, the best that they can to, you know, just dealing with the situation. So it'll be interesting to see what comes out. Looks like some of the restrictions are being lifted at the end of this week. So
yeah, so he can now go in the park again.
Yeah. It's very, very interesting.
There's going to be a flood of people into parks. They're going to be overcrowded.
Yeah, I'm interested to see what happens there. And so, given you are a lawyer, what's how did that come about? I guess like I'm always interested in people's journeys. You know what I mean? Like, did you grow up with I don't know, people in your family that were lawyers, or was it something that I don't know, you like arguing, or I don't know?
Well, I've always been annoying, and that's the primary attribute of a lawyer. No, my father's a lawyer. My sister's a lawyer. My sister-in-law is a lawyer. And I vowed up until uni to never become a lawyer. But then I got a much better result in school than I thought I would. So I unenrolled from engineering and enrolled in law and economics with the view of becoming a merchant banker. The goal was to earn so much money I could retire by 30. But then I did my first economics class and fell asleep. So I said, oh, this. And then I got stuck on the might as well train. So I was like, well, I might as well just finish this degree. And then I might as well apply for a job. And I got a job. I said, I might as well get admitted. Then I got admitted. I might as well serve a few years out. Did that. And then I just kept getting promoted year on year until I became a principal this year. So sort of just one thing led to another and didn't really manage to escape.
That's really cool. Yeah, no, I admire, I guess, the flexibility, I guess you could say, of my parents actually lawyers as well. So, and I could relate to what you're saying around I'm definitely going to be a lawyer, right? So I admire your flexibility around there. Like, you know, you had sort of a vision of where you wanted to go, and then all of a sudden, I'm just going to try it out. Next thing you know, like you're saying, you're a principal at a company. So that's really cool. I like that. And so given, you know, your position right now, we were just talking about it before we started recording. What's a big thing, I guess, for you in terms of building professional relationships or business to business sort of marketing? Is there anything that, you know, you've found to be key in that role, given your position?
Yeah, lunch and alcohol is probably the biggest thing by far. No, what I think is actually the most important thing is being genuine. I think there's a lot of fakers out there at the moment, particularly on LinkedIn. Like, yeah, I read through people's articles and I'm shaking my fist at the screen, being like, "You're so full of shit! Like, it's absolute rubbish. You don't know what you're talking about." And like, you get 10 people issuing the exact same article. Like right now, you jump on LinkedIn, the first 10 things you're going to see is, "Here's what we're doing during coronavirus." And it's like, like no one really cares what you're doing. It's what can you add? What value can you add? How can you help people? And that's sort of the approach I take. So we try and give out a lot of stuff for free. We try to be available to answer any questions on the spot. If the questions go too long, we charge you money, but still. And basically, it's about building a genuine connection, not taking yourself too seriously, as I definitely don't. And then understanding clients' businesses. So when someone has a problem, the first thing we do is try and understand what the commercial goal is and work backwards from there. A lot of lawyers will just give you a 4-page diatribe about what the law is. And I think most construction clients don't care. Maybe the in-house counsel do, but then we adjust the advice for them. And that's only basically then so they can report off the chain and make them look smart.
Yeah.
Really, it's just what do you want to achieve? What's the fastest, best, lowest cost way to get there?
Yeah. And just being real personal, like you're saying, like authentic, and really just having a normal conversation with someone and trying to find out what their needs are. I think, I mean, in any industry, right, is a big thing. And just back on LinkedIn, I'm a pretty avid user of LinkedIn as well, and I can relate to what you're saying, where you just scroll through your feed and there's a lot of just hints and tips about things. And to me personally, again, it's not necessarily organic or authentic. It's just sort of, trend, and it's not necessarily a bad thing. And that's kind of why I decided to just try and create my own content that I actually enjoy, because I found that I was getting frustrated with what I was from what I was seeing, and rather than getting in the comments and like writing up stuff, I just decided to create. So can totally relate. And so you're a bit of an avid user on LinkedIn as well, sounds like?
I'm starting to, because I've switched into this, what I call black belt position, or the top rank there in the firm. I got to switch into more of a BD role. I'm just exploring different options. I mean, particularly with the shutdown, I can't go to my usual lunches and coffees.
Yeah.
So, going to the more digital realm. And as you're saying, I think it's a good thing you're doing, like creating your own content, because, the best complaint is just coming up with a solution to the problem. And that's the sort of way I like to approach things. Like, rather than having a whinge about someone, even though I just had a big rant, you just go and do something positive about it. Then again, I am talking to you, so I'll take that.
That's, I mean, part of, what I was saying there is a bit of self-awareness as well. That's always a good thing. Is it's not necessarily, I'm going to do good or bad. Like, you're pretty self-aware about what's sort of going on, and that's always a key, I found, with content. That's sort of the cure for me. And man, these conversations have been really good. I'm pretty social in nature. Sounds like you are as well. So I didn't really
that's a giant lie. I'm a massive introvert.
That's why you became a lawyer, and you like sitting in an office?
Yeah, well, like I said, I did fall into it, but then I got hooked on the lunches. So no. So do you feel like you're growing as a person?
Oh man, 100%. I actually just finished a 6-month contract working close to 6 or 7 days a week. So it was pretty exhausting. And then now that I'm sort of in between contracts, it's good to self-reflect. These interviews and these conversations with people has been really good. Give me a different perspective on obviously different industries, but really the key for me was just, how do you create content? Like, I think it's an amazing tool, the internet, and how we can not only build a brand, like, I don't want to sound cliche, but just learn a craft, and something that's organic. Like, I love chatting to people and stuff, and it's natural to me. Like, for me, I won't go on LinkedIn and write articles, right? Because I'm not very, I don't really like to write, I guess you could say. It's easy for me to just talk about stuff. So I'm 100% growing. The other thing that I've been growing with regards to social as well is my TikTok account. So that's been, man, so good in terms of from an exercise point of view, because now, well, it kind of used to be, I don't know, it's just, I've followed the journey. It's transitioned so much since it was Musical.ly, but there's a lot of dancing content on that. So that's been pretty good. Like, I've been exercising in the mornings, but just trying to understand how the platform works, and it's very organic, the reach. So, there's a lot of business owners that are starting to wake up to TikTok's got some real potential. And not from a sales point of view, just branding. So that's been one thing, is just getting on there, but also actually understanding, another generation. So, the Zoomers, Gen Z, you could argue most of that generation's on that platform, right? So that would be my encouragement, I guess, if you haven't gotten on TikTok or you've seen.
I think I'm too old for that. I've got enough grey in my beard now that I'm not allowed on there. So
that is the most common thing I've heard, honestly, man. I've seen so many 40, 50, 60-year-olds on there, doing their trade and getting on there and doing their thing. It kind of makes me feel like, I can probably do this. But for me, it was just more about communication and trying to understand, what they're trying to do. But yeah, no, I would even in your spare time, if you wanted to just check it out, it's definitely recommended. It's good for exercise for me. In the mornings, I do my little dance routines. Sweat up.
Yeah. It's more exercise than I'm doing. Currently, I've mastered the lift the fork to the mouth. Lift the water bottle, the other hand, got to balance it out so I don't go uneven. Yeah. It's not to hijack your interview, but what does producing content mean to you?
Yeah, no, you're right. Probably being true to yourself. So part of producing content for me is rather than just consuming it and letting it like dictate or govern who I am, by producing, it allows you to be more creative in a sense. You know, I follow Gary Vaynerchuk, and I've literally like followed him for close to 5 years, right? And one of the big things he talks about is like document versus create. And sometimes I feel with social media, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but for me, I can just consume and I can have all these hypotheses and think all these ideas, but it's just in my head, right? And until I actually get out there and produce content, it's not really anything, right? So
Gary Vee's all about like getting your message through to the world. So what is your message?
Yeah, look, to be honest, at the moment, I don't really have a solid theme, to be brutally honest. It's more something that I personally, I actually see it frustrated when I just jump on any platform and I'll be like, they don't know what they're talking about. No, they should be doing this. And so it was a real good curator for me to go, oh, okay, if I start creating, then it literally changed my perspective on a lot of things.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, the message is just really being authentic. I think a lot of the things, that I used to do on social media, which is not a bad thing, it used to be governed by, oh, what would look good to other people, right? Or what would they think if I did this? Whereas now I'm literally just putting stuff on there that I guess I was saying before, it's authentic to me. I love chatting to people. I love shooting videos. I wouldn't necessarily write articles all the time, although it's something that I'm learning. But as I go on, I'm finding that there is more of a message that is coming about, or my creativity is becoming front of mind. So one of the things, I guess, for me and my wife is, when our kids come, we want to be able to understand, some of the things they're going through. And not to get too deep, but, sometimes I think as adults, we think, oh, I'm the adult, you're the kid, just do what I say, sort of thing. So I think it's about being open-minded is another theme that I'm starting to come across.
One thing I've had to do with my role is do a lot of leadership and management, and leading through authority is perhaps the worst thing you could possibly do. You want to persuade and inspire.
Yeah.
If you want an endless amount of resources, just jump on the Jocko podcast, and I think there's 200 something, and they're 3 hours long each. So it's like 600 hours of free content right there.
I still remember when we first met, you suggested to listen to those podcasts. So I listened to a bit of it, but he's very well known, got good content.
Yeah.
We'll listen to him a bit.
Maybe this process is about you finding that message you want to get across.
Yeah.
And put it into words that are specific.
Yeah, and have it like just on the background here in every interview.
Tattoo across your neck.
On my eyelids, so like when I go to bed, I can see it.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Hey, I've really enjoyed our time together, mate. Yeah, it's been good, very informative, and thanks for taking the time out to catch up. Just as some parting comments, is there anything that anyone can do that's watching either from my network or your network that could help you from a professional or business standpoint?
Just link with me on LinkedIn. Check out the website. I host people in the construction industry, and if you're not a related service, you could also come along. We host regular breakfast seminars in the city once the apocalypse restrictions are lifted, and that's basically providing information about and education about different construction issues, particularly construction law, so how to deal with variation claims, EOTs, like conditions, how to draft contracts, how to deal with adjudication, how to sue people, how to not be sued, how to survive being sued, all that sort of stuff. Changes to legislation. There's been a lot of changes in the last couple of years. People deal with mandatory financial requirements, project bank accounts. So a lot of things have been happening. Basically, they're like a regular keep up to date on what's going on, and they're free. And there's some pretty terrible pastries that come for free with it as well. So you don't want to miss out on them either.
Free nibbles.
Just check out the CDI's website. Yeah, exactly. Register.
No, that's good, mate. I'm going to include your LinkedIn profile in the comments. So anyone who literally wants to just reach out to Alex, feel free to do so, or just hit me up in the comments and I can facilitate an introduction. But appreciate your time, mate.
Likewise. All right.
Yeah. Chat to you soon, huh?
All right. See ya.
See ya, mate.